Hi, everyone. I'm Rosemary Miller here with Gil Luria, a senior analyst at DA Davidson. Thank you so much for joining me today, Gil.
Thanks for having me on.
So, Gil, we're going to jump into Adobe earnings. And today, Adobe announced its first quarter sales and adjusted earnings per share that beat expectations, but its stock took a drumming after it projected lower sales in the second quarter than investors were expecting. So, we hear that all is not well in the AI front, but can you tell us if that's true or not?
I think that is the concern for Adobe. The concern is, wait a second, if they're guiding for a hair below what we thought they were going to do, is it because all these new AI tools are coming up from everywhere else and threatening their business? I think most notably, folks are focused on the Sora product that OpenAI released that allows you to generate video from text and extrapolated from that Adobe is in trouble. We don't think that's the case. We think that enterprise spend is still not recovered. Adobe is still doing well, is on its way to exceeding its longer term targets. And the fact that for one quarter they think they'll be a hair below expectations doesn't really change that.
Mhm. Well, let's talk about the net income. For the first quarter, it was far below expectations, coming in at just $620 million versus the $1.56 billion that was expected. Do you know what's behind that?
Yeah, that's entirely the charge they had to take because the Figma acquisition isn't going to go through. So they announced the acquisition of Figma 2 years ago, about a $20 billion size at the time. And they had a clause that said that if the deal doesn't go through, they would have to pay Figma shareholders $1 billion. Since regulators appeared to block this deal, Adobe had to decide not to proceed and pay that $1 billion penalty. That's the entire difference between expectations and the results they just reported.
Mhm. And given a $25 billion buyback announcement, do you think Adobe thought its share price was already too low, or was it anticipating the after hours dive that cut about 10% off its value?
I think it's the leadership team wanting to be prudent with capital. Now that they know that they don't have to spend that money on buying Figma, they have the cash and the resources to buy back a substantial amount of their shares. The shares are already down almost 20% from where it was just a couple of months ago. So it gives them an opportunity to generate a good return to their shareholders by using the capital that's been freed up by not having to acquire Figma.
Mhm. And let's go back to AI for a minute. You did mention OpenAI and how they were kind of ahead of the game. What Adobe competitors will beat it to the AI punch, basically?
We don't think that any of them will beat Adobe. We think that it's exciting that this core emerging technology is coming out from some foundational technology companies like OpenAI or Midjourney. But Adobe is the one that has all the enterprise customers integrated into their processes. And so generating video isn't just generating a few minutes of video from a text prompt or any other way. It has a lot to do with what's in the video, how you edit it, how you add sound, all these things that Adobe's tools do. And now that we have all this new technology to generate more video, customers are actually going to need Adobe more in order to edit more video and produce more video. So this actually plays right into their hand. And there aren't certainly meaningful or large competitors that have the same reach within these marketing and creative agencies that Adobe does. So as the technology develops, Adobe can deploy it better than any other company.
When I think about Adobe, it doesn't quite feel user friendly when I think of like, Final Cut Pro or something for editing. And now they have this Instagram app called CapCut where you can quickly edit and you don't have to have any kind of, I don't know, editing experience. Do you think Adobe may suffer because of that?
Well, Adobe does need to migrate more of its tools to being mobile friendly and user friendly. They're a company that's come from desktop and heavy desktop usage, and their tools are increasingly more mobile. And as they get better at that and more adjusted and acclimated to that, the tools should become more user-friendly. But right now, the better experience is on the desktop. They need to migrate that better to the mobile experience.
That is very true. I have taken whole classes in college about just for Adobe. Adobe requires a whole class in and of itself. Anyway, moving on, Adobe CEO, did they overstate the case by saying we've done an incredible job harnessing the power of generative AI?
Adobe is one of the only companies that can really point to a generative AI application that's broadly adopted and is driving business. There's only a handful of companies that can say that. Adobe Firefly is an incredibly popular product that's actually bringing in a lot of new users into the top of the funnel for Adobe. 90% of of the folks that download Adobe Firefly are not current Adobe customers. And so by deploying this tool that allows the text to image capabilities, they're expanding their base, they're deploying a product that can generate business and then bring in customers through the door. There's not a lot of companies that can say that. For as much hype as we've had around generative AI, there's only a handful of companies that actually have a product in the market generating revenue because of generative AI.
That's true. There has been a lot of hype. Anyway, are there any bright spots in the report that you think our viewers should know about?
I think towards the end of the conversation today on the earnings call, they did talk about the fact that they have full confidence in the targets they'd previously laid out for the year. There should be an acceleration in the second half of the year. And as investors digest those thoughts from the CEO and the CFO, we believe that the shares will perform a little better.
And is there anything else on your radar regarding Adobe earnings that you think should be on ours?
Well, they hinted at some products that they're going to release with new capabilities around text to video. So we should really be looking out for those and see how advanced those are.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Gil.
Thank you.